I was standing in my daughter's kitchen, holding my purse in one hand and my coat in the other, when I realized something felt wrong. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet heaviness in the air that I couldn't explain. The kind of feeling you get when a storm is coming, even though the sky still looks clear. I remember thinking maybe it's just nerves. Maybe I'm just tired. But deep down, I knew this day was going to leave a mark on me. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, please take a moment to subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Helps more than you know. My name is Eleanor. I'm 69 years old, and for most of my life I believed that if you loved your family enough, if you stayed quiet enough, if you gave enough of yourself, things would work out in the end. I believed that kindness was always returned. I believed that blood meant loyalty. Those beliefs were the only things I carried with me into my daughter's house 3 months earlier, when I arrived with 2 suitcases and a heart that was already tired. My daughter Melissa had asked me to come stay with her and her husband, Brian, after I sold my little townhouse in Michigan. It had been the home I shared with my late husband for nearly 4 decades, the place where our children took their first steps, where we fought, forgave, laughed, and grew old together. After he passed, the house felt too big, too quiet. Every creaking floorboard sounded like a memory that didn't know where to go. Melissa said it would be good for me to be around family again. Brian nodded along, smiling that polite smile he always used when he wanted to seem kind without committing to it. I didn't think too deeply about it. I was tired of being alone. First, living with them felt almost warm. Melissa hugged me a lot. She showed me where to put my things. The dogs, 2 energetic golden retrievers named Daisy and Max, followed me everywhere, their tails wagging as if I were already part of the pack. I cooked, cleaned, folded laundry. I didn't want to be a burden. I wanted to be helpful. Brian was polite in those early weeks. Quiet, distant but polite. He'd say thank you when I cooked dinner. He'd nod when I passed him in the hallway. We weren't close, but we weren't enemies either. That changed slowly. It was never one big moment. It was little things. Comments. The way he'd sigh when I walked into a room. The way he'd mention how expensive groceries were, even though Melissa insisted I wasn't costing them anything. The way he'd joke about long-term guests at dinner, always glancing at me when he said it. I pretended not to notice. That's what women my age do. We smooth things over. We make excuses. We don't want to cause trouble. I told myself he was just stressed. Work, bills, life. The dogs though, the dogs were my comfort. Every morning I fed them. Every afternoon I walked them around the block. They became my little routine, my reason to get dressed and step outside. Brian noticed that too. "You're good with them," he said once. "They listen to you." Smiled. "They're just sweet animals." He nodded, but there was something in his eyes. Not warmth, not gratitude. Calculation. By the time my sister called to tell me her health was declining, I had been living there for almost 3 months. She lived in Arizona. We had grown up together. She was the last person on this earth who knew me before I was someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's burden. "I don't know how much longer I can do this on my own," she said softly over the phone. I booked a ticket that same day. I didn't tell Brian at first. I told Melissa. She looked relieved for me. "Of course you should go," she said. "You've been so cooped up here." Brian overheard. "When are you leaving?" he asked from the living room. "Friday morning," I said. "I'll only be gone a week." He didn't respond, just stared at the TV, jaw tight. That night, he didn't come to bed when Melissa did. The morning of my flight, I woke up before everyone else. I always did. Old habits. I made coffee. I fed Daisy and Max. I folded the blanket on the couch where Brian sometimes slept. I felt strangely nervous, like I was asking permission just by existing. When Melissa came down, she hugged me. "Call me when you land," she said. Brian came in a few minutes later. He didn't look at me. "Make sure the dogs get walked twice a day," he said. "They get restless." "I will," I replied. "I always do." He finally looked at me then. There was something sharp behind his eyes. "Good," he said. "They'll need you here." I didn't understand what he meant. Not yet. And that was how I walked out the door that morning, with my suitcase, my boarding pass tucked safely in my purse, and no idea that before the sun set, I would be standing in an airport with nothing but torn paper in my hand and a truth I wasn't ready to face. The airport was louder than I expected. Even though I had flown before, something about it always made me feel small. The tall ceilings, the echo of rolling suitcases, the way everyone seemed to be in a hurry to get somewhere important. People moved with purpose. Families hugged. Business travelers walked quickly with their phones pressed to their ears. Young couples leaned against one another, whispering as they waited. I stood there with my suitcase in one hand and my purse in the other, trying to find the right line for my airline. For a moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. It wasn't a loud feeling. It wasn't excitement. It was quiet, almost shy. But it was there, the idea that for a few days I would belong to myself again. I found the check-in counter and joined the line. Ahead of me was a woman about my age, fussing with her boarding pass, and behind me a young man who smelled like coffee and cologne. I could hear the soft voice of the airline agent calling out, "Next, please." I pulled my ticket out of my purse and held it in my hand, just to be sure it was there. It was neatly printed. My name is spelled correctly. My destination is waiting patiently on the page. I smiled without realizing it. Arizona, I whispered to myself. I was so lost in that small, private moment that I didn't hear Brian at first. Eleanor. His voice came from behind me. Out of place. I turned slowly, surprised to see him standing there in the terminal. He wasn't carrying a bag. He wasn't dressed for travel. He looked like someone who had followed me, not someone who was going somewhere. "Oh," I said. "I didn't know you were coming. I just needed to talk to you," he replied. His eyes flicked down to the ticket in my hand. I felt my stomach tighten, though I couldn't have said why. "What about?" "Yes." He stepped closer. Too close. I could smell the faint scent of his aftershave. "About you leaving," he said. "I told Melissa," I replied. "I'm only gone a week." He didn't smile. "That's not the point." The line moved forward. The woman ahead of me stepped up to the counter. I shuffled forward, still holding my ticket. "Brian," I said quietly, "we can talk later. I'm about to check in." "That's exactly why we need to talk now." People were starting to look. Not directly, but you can always tell when something feels off in public. Voices lower. Bodies turn just slightly. I could feel the air around us change. "I need my boarding pass," he said. I frowned. "Why?" "Just give it to me." Something in his tone made my fingers tighten around the paper. "I don't understand," I said. His hand moved suddenly. Not violently, but quickly. He took the ticket right out of my grasp before I could react. "Brian," I started. He looked at the ticket for a moment, then at me, and then, right there in the middle of the airport, he tore it in half. The sound was small. Just paper ripping. But it felt louder than anything I'd ever heard. Froze. For a second, my mind refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. 2 pieces of my boarding pass hung loosely in his hand. "You can't just," I whispered, my voice thin. He let the pieces fall. "They won't let you board without it," he said flatly. Around us, people were staring now. Not openly, but not pretending not to either. A man near the security line stopped walking. A woman in a red jacket frowned in our direction. I felt heat crawl up my neck. "Brian," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What are you doing?" He leaned in slightly. "You're staying here," he said. "We need you." "For what?" "Yes." "The dogs," he replied. "Just take care of the dogs." For a moment, I didn't understand the words. They felt unreal, like something from a bad dream. "Take care of the dogs," I repeated. "They need to be fed. But you know their routine. Melissa and I have work. We can't just leave them with anyone." I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man my daughter had married. The man who shared her bed. Who shared her life. "Brian," I said slowly, "I'm going to see my sister. She's not well." He shrugged. You'll see her some other time. People were definitely staring now. I could feel it, that uncomfortable awareness that I was part of a scene, not just a person passing through. My face felt hot. My hands were trembling. You didn't have to do this here, I said quietly. You could have just talked to me. I did talk to you, he replied. You didn't listen. I did listen, I said. I just didn't agree. He turned as if the conversation was over. Go home, he said. The dogs will be waiting. And then he walked away. I didn't chase him. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I stood there in the boarding line, holding the two torn halves of my ticket, while strangers watched as if I were something to be studied. People were staring. And I didn't know where to go. I stayed where I was for a long time after Brian walked away. The airport kept moving around me like a river flowing past a rock. People rolled suitcases. Voices came and went. A baby cried somewhere near the security line. An announcement echoed overhead about a delayed flight. None of it seemed to belong to me anymore. It was like I had stepped out of the world for a moment and was watching it from behind glass. In my hand were the two pieces of my boarding pass. They were light, fragile, a small thing to hold for something that had felt so big. I kept looking at them, turning them over, half expecting the paper to somehow fix itself, as if maybe, if I waited long enough, the rip would disappear, and everything would be normal again. But the tear was still there, jagged, uneven, permanent, just like what Brian had done. I felt stupid standing there. People were glancing at me and then quickly looking away. Some of them were probably wondering if I was all right. Some of them were probably just curious. I didn't know which was worse. My face felt hot. My throat felt tight. But no tears came. I bent down slowly and picked up the pieces of the ticket from the floor, smoothing them out with trembling fingers. I tucked them carefully into my purse, as if they were something important, something I might need later. I didn't know what to do next. All I knew was that I couldn't make myself move. So I stood there, and while the airport continued to hum around me, my mind drifted somewhere else. Somewhere quieter, somewhere older. I thought about how I had ended up here. Not just in this airport, but in Brian and Melissa's house in the first place. It hadn't been some sudden decision. It had been a slow slide, one small choice after another. After my husband died, the silence in my old house had become unbearable. I would sit in the living room at night with a television on just to hear another voice, even if it wasn't talking to me. Melissa called more often then. She worried about me, or at least she said she did. You shouldn't be alone all the time, Mom, she told me. You can come stay with us for a while. Just until you figure things out. While. That was the word she used. I had packed 2 suitcases. I left most of my things behind, locked up in that quiet house, thinking I'd be back soon. I thought it would be temporary. Visit. A way to get my feet back under me. But weeks turned into months. At first, I tried very hard not to be in the way. I cooked dinner. I cleaned the kitchen. I folded their laundry even when they told me I didn't have to. I made myself useful. That was how I had been raised. You earn your place by being helpful. When the dogs needed walking, I volunteered. When groceries needed picking up, I went. When Melissa was tired, I told her to rest and I'd take care of things. Brian never asked me to do any of it. But he never stopped me either. I wondered now if somewhere along the way, I had stopped being a guest and started being something else. Something convenient. I remembered a time a few weeks earlier, when Brian had come home late from work and found me sitting on the couch with Daisy and Max, watching television. The dogs had their heads on my lap, warm and heavy. Must be nice, he had said, not looking at me. To just sit around all day. I was cooking dinner, I replied. It's almost ready. He didn't answer. Back then I told myself he was just tired. I always told myself that. Standing there in the airport, I felt a strange, aching realization settle over me. Maybe I had been telling myself that for a very long time. I thought about all the ways I had tried to make that house feel like home. How I bought groceries with my own money. How I quietly paid for the dog's food when Brian complained about the cost. How I slipped cash into Melissa's purse when she mentioned being short that month. I had never kept track. I didn't want to. Family wasn't supposed to be something you counted. But maybe Brian had been counting. Maybe to him I wasn't a mother-in-law. Maybe I was an unpaid helper who had suddenly decided to leave. The thought made my chest ache. I had never once asked for anything in return. I hadn't asked for gratitude. I hadn't asked for praise. I had just wanted to belong somewhere again. And now, here I was being told to take care of the dogs instead of seeing my sister. A wave of doubt washed over me. Did I do something wrong? The question came quietly, but it was heavy. Had I been too much? Too quiet? Too present? Not present enough? I replayed the last few months in my head, searching for some moment where I had crossed a line without realizing it. Time when I might have offended Brian. A look I might have misread. I couldn't find one. But still the doubt lingered. Maybe this was just how people saw me now. Not as Eleanor, not as a woman with her own life and needs, but as someone who was supposed to stay behind and take care of things. The airport felt colder suddenly. I glanced around again. People were back to moving, back to their own lives. Whatever scene Brian and I had created was already fading into the noise of the terminal. To everyone else it was over. To me it felt like something inside had cracked. I thought about my sister waiting for me. About the phone call, in which her voice had sounded thinner than usual. About how she had tried not to worry me. "I'll be okay," she'd said. "I just miss you." I swallowed. Did I deserve to miss her? Did I deserve to go see her? The question hurt more than I wanted to admit. For so long I had lived in the spaces between other people's needs. My husband's, my children's, now Melissa's and Brian's. Somewhere along the way, my own wants had started to feel like inconveniences. Standing there, clutching my purse, I felt small. Not angry. Not yet. Just small. I imagined myself going back to the house. Walking in quietly. Feeding the dogs. Making dinner. Pretending nothing had happened. Part of me knew that would be the easiest path. The one that caused the least trouble. But another part of me, a tired, aching part, whispered that if I did that, something in me might never come back. I didn't know what I was about to do. I just knew that I couldn't go home. Slowly, with shaky legs, I turned and began walking back toward the airline counter. I wasn't sure what I was about to do, but I knew I couldn't just go home. I didn't walk fast. I didn't rush. I didn't even know exactly what I was going to say when I reached the counter. My feet just carried me there, one step at a time, like they were following something deeper than my thoughts. The line at the airline desk was shorter now. A few people stood waiting, holding their phones and papers. I joined the end of it and waited. My heart was beating hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. I kept thinking someone would stop me. That Brian would come back angry or smug or something. But he didn't. The space around me stayed empty. When it was my turn, I stepped forward. The agent was a young woman with neat hair pulled back into a bun. Her name tag said Rachel. She looked tired but kind, the way people do when they've been dealing with travelers all day. "Next, please," she said. I placed my purse on the counter and slowly took out the 2 torn pieces of my boarding pass. I laid them down in front of her, smoothing them with my fingertips. "I'm supposed to be on this flight," I said quietly. "But my ticket was damaged." She frowned slightly, leaning forward. "Oh, that happens sometimes," she said gently. "Do you have an ID?" I handed her my driver's license. My hands were still shaking, but I tried to keep my voice steady. She typed for a moment, then looked back at the screen. "Yes, I see your booking," she said. "You're checked in under Eleanor Harris." "That's me." She hesitated. "But it looks like the ticket was purchased on another card." My stomach tightened. "Yes," I said. "My son-in-law paid for it." "Okay," she replied. "We just need authorization from the cardholder to reissue it." I nodded slowly. "I understand." Behind me I could feel people waiting, shifting their weight. The air felt thick with quiet attention. Rachel glanced at me. Do you want me to call the cardholder? No, I said. He's here in the airport. I can get him. I didn't know why I said that. Just came out. Rachel nodded. All right. We'll wait. I stepped aside and looked around the terminal. Brian wasn't far away. He was standing near a coffee kiosk, scrolling on his phone. His posture was relaxed, like someone who believed everything was already settled. I walked toward him slowly. Brian, I said when I was close enough. He looked up, irritation flickering across his face. What now? The airline needs you, I said. They need the card you used to book my ticket. He frowned. Why? To reissue it. His eyes narrowed. I told you. You're not going. I just need you to come with me, I said quietly. People nearby were watching. Not staring but noticing. He hesitated, then followed me back to the counter. Rachel smiled politely when we approached. Sir, are you the cardholder for this booking? Yes, Brian replied curtly. We just need your authorization to reissue the boarding pass, she said. He folded his arms. I don't authorize it. Rachel paused. In that case, the ticket remains active under your name and payment. If it isn't used, it may be subject to cancellation fees. Brian looked at the screen behind her. What do you mean, under my name? It's your card, she said. So the booking is tied to you. Something shifted in his expression. Not anger. Something closer to uncertainty. If you don't want the passenger to travel, Rachel continued, we can cancel the ticket. But you would need to confirm that. Cancel. The word hung in the air. Brian glanced at me. For the first time he looked unsure. If I cancel it, he said slowly, what happens? The credit goes back to the card, Rachel replied. Minus any applicable fees. He looked back at the screen. Then at me again. You're not going anywhere, he muttered. But now his voice didn't sound as solid as before. Would you like me to proceed with the cancellation? Rachel asked. There was a long pause. Brian's jaw tightened. People behind us were watching now. Not closely, but enough. The quiet was uncomfortable. Yes, he finally said. Cancel it. Rachel nodded and typed. All right, she said. It's been cancelled. Brian exhaled sharply, as if relieved. And that's it, he asked. Yes, sir. He turned to me. Now let's go. I didn't move. Rachel cleared her throat. Just so you know, sir, the cancellation will appear on your card statement. If there are any issues with refunds, you'll need to contact your bank. Brian's face flickered with something I couldn't quite name. We walked away from the counter. The airport felt different now. Quieter. Heavier. Neither of us spoke as we headed toward the exit. I didn't know what would happen next. All I knew was that I was leaving that airport alone. And that's when my phone started ringing. The phone rang just as I stepped through the sliding doors of the airport. For a second I didn't even look at the screen. The sound alone made my chest tighten. Something about it felt heavier than an ordinary call, like it already carried the weight of what was about to be said. I stopped just outside the entrance. Cars passed. Suitcases rolled by. The warm air smelled faintly of gasoline and coffee. My reflection flickered in the glass. A small, gray-haired woman holding her purse like it was the only solid thing left. Then I saw the name. Melissa. My daughter. I hesitated. I had spent so much of my life answering her calls immediately. Even when I was tired. Even when I was busy. Even when it wasn't a good time. That was what mothers did. But now, for the first time, I felt unsure. Not because I didn't love her. I did deeply. But because I didn't know what this conversation would cost me. The phone rang again. Answered. Mom. Her voice was tight. Not angry yet. Something worse, confused. Where are you? I'm still at the airport, I said softly. What do you mean still? She asked. Brian said you left. Closed my eyes. He tore up my ticket, I said. There was a long silence on the other end. He what? He took my boarding pass, I repeated, slower this time. and he tore it in half. He said I needed to stay and take care of the dogs. I could hear her breathing. Quick, Cello. That doesn't make sense, she said. Why would he do that? I don't know, I replied. And that was the truth. Another pause. Where is he now? She asked. I'm not sure, I said. We walked out together, but I came this way. Mom. Her voice wavered. Are you okay? I swallowed. I don't know. There was a sound on the other end, the faint echo of footsteps, a door closing. I imagined her stepping away from Brian, trying to talk to me privately. I need you to tell me exactly what happened, she said quietly. So I did. I told her about the line at the counter, about Brian stepping in, about the paper tearing, about the words he used. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse him. I just said what had happened. When I finished, Melissa didn't speak right away. I'm going to talk to him, she finally said. Just wait there. The line went dead. I stood outside the airport, holding my phone, feeling like I had just set something in motion that I couldn't stop. Few minutes later it rang again. This time it was Brian. I didn't answer. It rang again. And again. Then Melissa called. Mom, she said, her voice shaking. He says he was just joking. That you misunderstood. I let out a small, sad breath. Was the ticket a joke too? He says he thought it would be easier if you stayed, she replied. That the dogs need you. And I don't need my sister. Yes. She didn't answer. I'm not angry with you, I said gently. But I need you to understand something. I was embarrassed. People were watching. He made me feel like I wasn't allowed to leave. I didn't know, she whispered. I know, I said. There was more silence. Brian's upset, she finally said. He says he didn't mean it like that. Meaning doesn't change what happened, I replied. I don't know what to do, she said. And there it was, the moment I had feared. My daughter is stuck between her husband and her mother. Neither do I said honestly. When the call ended, I felt strangely hollow. Not relieved. Not satisfied. Just tired. I walked to a nearby bench and sat down. Around me, people laughed, argued, hugged, and hurried. Life kept going. My phone buzzed again. A message from Brian. We need to talk. I didn't reply. Another message. You're blowing this out of proportion. Then another. Come back. We'll figure it out. I stared at the screen. For years, I had been the one who smoothed things over. The one who made it okay. The one who pretended not to be hurt so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. But now, I didn't know how to do that anymore. I thought about the dogs. Daisy and Max. Their soft eyes. Their warm bodies curled beside me on the couch. I loved them. They were innocent in all of this. But I wasn't a caretaker first. I was a person. Melissa called again later that afternoon. Mom, she said, her voice small. He's scared. Of what? I asked. That you're going to leave, she replied. The irony almost made me laugh. He already made sure I couldn't, I said. He says he didn't think you would actually go, she added. He thought you'd just stay. Closed my eyes. That's what hurts, I said quietly. He didn't think my life mattered. Mom, please come back, she whispered. We can talk about this at home. I looked around at the airport parking lot. At the sky stretching wide above me. I don't know if I can right now, I said. When we hung up, my heart felt heavy, but also strangely clear. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't rushing to fix anything. I didn't know if telling the truth would save my family. Or destroy it. I didn't go back to the house that night. I sat in the airport cafe with a cup of coffee that went cold in my hands, watching people come and go. Some were arriving to be greeted by family. Some were leaving, waving goodbye. Everyone seemed to belong somewhere. I wasn't sure where I belonged anymore. Melissa called again just after sunset. Mom, she said quietly. I told him he was wrong. I waited, afraid to breathe too loudly. He didn't take it well, she continued. He said you're being dramatic. That you always make things difficult. I felt a dull ache behind my eyes. What did you say? Yes. I said you're my mother, she replied. That you don't get treated like that. It wasn't a victory. It didn't feel like one. But it was something. He's angry, she added. He says if you don't come back, things are going to get complicated. I stared at the tabletop. Complicated for who? For all of us. There it was again. The quiet pressure to make myself small so everyone else could stay comfortable. I love you, I said softly. But I need you to hear me. I wasn't trying to cause trouble. I just wanted to see my sister. I know, she whispered. And when he tore up my ticket, I continued. Something inside me broke. I can't pretend it didn't. We sat in silence for a moment, connected only by a phone line and a lifetime of memories. I don't want to lose you, she said. I don't want to lose you either, I replied. But we both knew something had already changed. Later that evening, Brian texted me. I didn't mean to humiliate you. The words sat there on my screen, small and fragile. But you should have talked to me before making plans. I thought about all the times I had talked. All the times I had explained myself. All the times it hadn't mattered. I didn't reply. I finally left the airport when the sky turned dark. I checked into a small hotel nearby. Nothing fancy, just a quiet room with a bed and a lamp and a place to breathe. As I lay there that night, I thought about everything I had lost. I had lost the illusion that being useful was the same as being loved. I had lost the comfort of pretending that Brian's little comments didn't hurt. I had lost the feeling of safety in my daughter's home. But I had also gained something, even if I didn't know how to hold it yet. I had gained a voice. The next morning, Melissa came to see me. She looked tired. Her eyes were red. We sat across from each other in the small hotel lobby. Two women who loved each other and didn't quite know how to bridge the space between them. I didn't see it, she said. Not really. Thought he was just stressed. But when you told me what happened, I couldn't unhear it. He nodded. I didn't want to make you choose. I don't want to choose either, she replied. But I can't pretend nothing happened. Neither could I. We talked for a long time. About the dogs. About money. About boundaries. About how hard it is when love and loyalty pull in different directions. When she left, she hugged me longer than usual. I don't know what's going to happen, she said. Neither do I replied. But for the first time I wasn't afraid of not knowing. I didn't get on a plane that day. I didn't see my sister. I lost that moment and it still hurts. But I gained something else. Something quieter and deeper. I stopped disappearing. I didn't win. But I finally stopped disappearing.